Japan. We got to go back soon.
What is going on, beautiful people? Today we're doing a live Bible study. Me and Andrew are studying. I gotta get comfortable. We are studying King Solomon, who was the wisest man to ever live. We're going to be in the Bible, but also I'm going to ask Andrew some questions, ChatGPT some questions, and you guys some questions. But this really came about because we started a new series called the Shepherd Series, where we are breaking down some of the world's greatest leaders, some alive, some dead. And I wanted to do Solomon. So I'm using this time to literally, in the moment, break down King Solomon.
This is exciting. And I like studying King Solomon. It was something I was saying before the camera come on. What you looking for, brother?
A pen.
A pen. You can borrow mine. Something I was saying before we went live was it's cool how that the perspective, and you read, Song of Solomon and about love and all the various things, but then also you read Ecclesiastes. Of course, Proverbs is the wisdom of Solomon, but you read Ecclesiastes about, for lack of a better term, the fall of Solomon. And I think it's such a good perspective understanding the humanity. And it gives us insight of not just what to do, right? He asked God for wisdom. He done so many things right, but also what not to do in some aspects and how he was lifted up and his fall and the various things that happened. So excited to dig again, man.
100%. So first place I want to start was Solomon's Ask, which, from my understanding, Solomon asked for wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
He asked for the ability to discern from what is good and bad instead of asking for riches. Instead of asking for more money, more power, he asked for wisdom. And because of that, God gave him everything else.
Yeah.
Let's break that down a little bit.
Well, it was cool because God trusted Solomon enough. And I point out this because it's important. I know we have fathers and mothers that listen to this. Some of you guys have kids or maybe will be having. And it's such a powerful thing to look at Solomon's dad, David, and how that he set Solomon up in a way for success, because the Bible says that David was a man after God's own heart, and he was a good king.
What does that mean, though? After his own heart?
It means that he sought God in what he done. He seek after God for decisions, to make good decisions. David would pursue God or pursue good. And something else that is such a powerful thing in the beginning, and this is an illustration of God taking what was meant for evil and turn it to good, is when David, how Solomon was even born, which was David sleeping with Bathsheba, who was married to the head of the military.
Yeah.
And so through this screw up, through this bad situation, Solomon's born. And God said, you know what, I'm gonna bless this man that might otherwise be looked down on. And so David, by being a God-led man, even with the screw-ups, come along to be pave the way for Solomon. And then when God came to Solomon, because his dad had a lot of influence on him, when God came to Solomon and said, hey, I'll give you whatever you want, he was wise enough to say, you know what, just give me wisdom. And he could have said, make me rich. He could have said, I want a bunch of women. He could have said all of these different things that would have been pleasing to a young man, but instead he said, give me wisdom. And God says, cool, because you asked for wisdom, I want to make sure that you have everything else too.
So what can we and everyone listening now and in the future learn from that type of ask, when you ask God for wisdom over anything else?
I think the centers in personal responsibility. If we have wisdom to know how to do business, how to lead family, how to lead community, how to make money, if we have wisdom in all the decisions we make, then everything else comes along behind that. And when we get out of balance is when we get our heart set, like we'll talk about today, like Solomon did later in life, when we get our heart set on me, on mine. Because in Ecclesiastes, when Solomon's talking about his life and reflecting, he's like, I had all these women, I bought all these properties, I done this for me. And so when we get away from wisdom and we get self-centered, self-focused, and it's all about us and our immediate pleasure rather than building the kingdom, then that's where we get off track.
So I want to read this, and it's in 1 Kings 3, verse 7, God appears in Solomon's dream, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Solomon is talking to who?
I don't remember. I have to look back.
Let's find that out. He says, Lord my God, you have now made your servant king in my father David's place. Yet I am just a youth with no experience in leadership. Your servant is among your people you have chosen, a people too many to be numbered or counted. So give your servant a receptive heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil.
What verse are you on?
1 Kings 3:7.
7. Okay.
It's a little bit before that it shows. So what stood out to me here that I've been researching is Solomon says, yet I am just a youth with no experience in leadership. And in my life, I remember when I was 18, I started leading our team, and I was in a very interesting position where I had no idea how to lead. However, I remember learning this story a long time ago. You had told me this story. I probably ignored a lot of it in the beginning, but the thing that caught on to me was that Solomon asked for wisdom. And the way my 18-year-old mind was like, okay, Solomon was the richest man ever, and he asked for wisdom. Okay, cool. Let me ask for wisdom.
Smart move.
And of course, over the years, I've seen what God has done in our lives to turn us into the men that can lead family, lead our team, lead our culture continuously. And it is simply being able to discern what is good and bad, what is for you and what is not for you, making decisions of every day, I'm going to choose to wake up and choose to be positive, or I'm going to choose to hire this person, fire this person. It's all just decisions that you make every single day that relate to the wisdom that I think we've been able to create, going back to Solomon, studying how he did it in his life.
Yeah, he said he asked specifically God, and this shows the heart of Solomon. This shows the perspective he had at the time. He said, I want wisdom because I want understanding to understand how to lead essentially your people. And I think that was such a selfless request. He said, how do I tell good and bad? Who really is positioned to lead such a great number of people? And he was in that moment realizing that, like, it was a little overwhelming for him. Like, oh my gosh, I'm becoming king, and all these people are looking to me to make decisions and to lead and to be an example. And he, in that moment, is saying, okay, I realize that this is a great responsibility, and I'm going to need understanding to do it well for good and for God.
100%. So I guess a reflective question that we can ask right now is in your prayers, what are you asking for? Right? God calls us to ask, right? What is the verse when you ask those that ask receive?
You'll receive, seek and you'll find, and knock and the door be open for you.
When I started to learn about prayer in this way, I started to realize that God is calling us to ask for the right things, right? God's asking us to listen to him, see what he's working on in your life, and you're there to follow. That's what gives you the ability to, of course, call on to him and say, hey, give me wisdom.
Yeah.
Guide me through this because I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for your kingdom. And it reminds me of a call to action for ourselves to pray for wisdom in almost every single day.
Absolutely.
Right? With every decision as entrepreneurs, as creators, as people who lead at a high level, we have to every day discern what is good and bad.
Yeah.
We have to look between the lines of people. Is this person lying to me? Is this person good for the business? Is this person making a good decision? And then having the wisdom to make that decision for them or with them.
Well, and that's such a great responsibility as leaders, right? Because who you allow into your community, who you allow into your sphere, who you allow into your business, it's all going to affect. And I knew he was young. I didn't know how young. I just looked it up. When he became king, history tells us he was around 20 years old.
Wow.
20 years old, and he's becoming king over between 4 and 5 million people. So think of what's going through his 20-year-old brain at that moment, going, wait a second. Like, I've seen dad do this king thing, and holy crap, this is crazy. And so he's looking at this. He knows the responsibilities. He's seen his dad be king. He's seen his dad's successes and failures. And now he's becoming responsible for 4 or 5 million people at 20 years old. And so looking at it from his perspective in that moment of, and I think this is a frame that we can take away, because as leaders, it's easy to experience overwhelm. There's so many projects, especially when you're leading people, when you're, impacting, feeding your family and those around you. And that responsibility can sometimes be stressful.
Right.
But it's in that moment that he prayed the ultimate prayer and says, God, I'm going to need your guidance and wisdom here, because this is bigger than I am.
I love that. So I looked it up here. Solomon's original prayer, 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 7 through 12. Give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. He didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask for a long life. He didn't ask for power. He asked for a listening heart.
Yep.
He asked to lead well and to discern truth from lies.
Wow.
And when you think about that as business owners, when you have a listening heart, right? When you can feel for people, when you can listen to people, when you can understand what people are going through, what our team is going through, it's what gives us the ability to discern. It's what gives us the ability to look at someone and say, okay, I know what you're going through. I know what you need. I can create what you need.
Yeah.
Right? Just like all of our students, all of our customers, we look at what they need. We listen to what they need. We pay attention as a whole to what our clients need, and we give that to them.
Yeah.
It's what makes me think so much about business. And Solomon was a business leader.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that, like his whole scope as a business owner?
Well, I don't know. I'm not qualified to talk about the whole scope as a business owner, but I will say that if you study Solomon, scholars estimate it was 2.7 trillion that he was worth. 2.7 trillion in today's money. Now that makes that's beyond what Elon's worth by a ways. And I share that because it's such an impactful thing when you start to look at essentially his content machine. His content was, he built wealth. He started out right. He asked God for wisdom. He led well. And by leading well and making the country rich and making himself wealthy, he built an incredible temple. The temple had, I forget how many tons of gold. It was crazy.
I read that this morning. It took him 13 years to build that up.
Yes, it was incredible, and he built it for God. But the cool thing is that we can learn from that, and he used that to write, I believe it was 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs. His content covered, of course, wisdom. His content covered prayers. His content covered romantic and love. His content covered all these things in his writings. But then this is what I think is powerful, and something he taught us and we've had to learn, is Ecclesiastes. He became vulnerable, and he reflected on all of his mistakes. And he said, wait a second, at the end of his life, seems like he made things right, but he said, vanity of vanity, all is vanity. Meaning, and he says that right after he's named all of these things that he's done. He said, I've bought me houses. I've made this temple. I've made and I've built and I've had pleasure and I've had dancers and I've had all of the things he's naming. I've had for me. And he's basically saying, guys, I started out right. I asked for wisdom. I got distracted with all the money and the people coming to me and the people asking me for guidance. And I'm realizing now that I should have stayed on track. And so learn from my successes, ask for wisdom, but also learn from my failures and avoid getting distracted by pleasure, avoid getting distracted by immediate gratification, avoid getting distracted by ego when people are coming to you asking for your wisdom, because ultimately it came from God anyway. And so I think that is the takeaway there, that as we are lifted up, as we become brilliant business owners, as we build wealth, as we get more people who we impact for good, it's always a human temptation to be like, yeah, look at me, look at what I built. This is like, I'm freaking crushing it. Like, these people are asking my advice, and anytime that starts to happen, it starts to take the focus off of the serving, and it starts to put the focus more on me.
Hmm. I think about how, we can make sure to take Solomon as a great example for someone who was a great man,
Yeah.
who led a lot of great people, who did a lot of great things, but also had a bit of a fall,
Yeah.
and how we can make sure in that fall what happened, and how do we not get there, right? Because we're leading as much as we can. We're asking God for wisdom. We're doing everything we can do right. And as we start to grow, how do we make sure that when, for example, the devil tempts anyone, but the devil tempts you, how do we make sure to discern that and always stay true? Keep your eyes fixed on God. That's a question I think about.
Well, it's something, the pattern he describes of where he started falling off the wagon, so to speak. And he also talks there about, in the end, Rehoboam, his son, who takes over the kingdom gets split. He said, look, guys, I screwed it up so bad, like my son couldn't even hold it together.
Yeah.
And he describes where he went wrong. He says that his wives turned his heart to other gods. That's the power of influence.
He had 700 wives and 300 concubines.
Yes.
Again, I feel like I've asked you this 3 times, but like, what is a concubine?
A concubine is a side
Like
piece.
a side piece. Okay.
It's a lot of side
That's
pieces.
funny.
So I'm sure there's a more detailed description there. But the mismanagement of your resources. So I was looking here and I was asking what took him away. Where did it say here? Ecclesiastes 2. I want to look it up. Ecclesiastes 2. Where's it at?
By the way, when we do this type of format of Bible study, like, feel free to tap in any questions or thoughts, because I have all your comments here, that all your writings come up so I can see it all. But it's fun that we get to do this together. This is what me and Andrew would be doing anyways, because this turns into content that we create to help other people learn wisdom, pray for wisdom, and it helps us as well as we're leading our companies, our teams. We always learn and we reteach it. So be with us on this if you want to read or ask any questions or give any thoughts.
So he's describing here in the pitfalls, and the Bible tells us too, I believe it's Ecclesiastes, that after his wives turned his heart to other gods. So he asked God for wisdom. God blesses him and gives him wisdom. So now he's the richest man in the world. He's attracting all of this wealth and all these things. And what happens is he starts building temples for his wife gods. Now, you go all the way back to the Old Testament. You go back to the 10 Commandments. One of the 10 Commandments is, have no other gods before me. God, if he loved us enough to give his son for us, if he loved us enough to build a world around us, he's not trying to have us to go give glory to other places. And so his wives come and turn his heart to other gods. He starts building them temples. And this was his perspective. He said, I got me servants. I got me possessions. I got me animals. I got me silver and gold. I got me treasures. I got kings coming to listen to me. I've got singers. I've got all the delights of men. I've got music. He said it was so great and increased, and my wisdom also continued to remain. This is a verse, takes me to a verse. It says the gift of God is without repentance, meaning when God blesses us with something, just because we're using it wrong, he's not taking it away from us. Great responsibility in that gift that we're given. And so he said, whatever my eyes desired, I didn't withhold it. I just went and got it. I could buy anything I wanted. I could get the yachts. I could get the women. I could travel the world. I could have whatever I wanted. And so I didn't withhold myself from any whim that I wanted to follow after.
Any what?
Any whim, like any, it didn't say whim, but like anything I wanted. It was just on a whim. I want this thing. I'm going to get it. And so in doing that, he got so focused up in pleasure and pleasing the people around him that he essentially forgot about God. And I think that is such a powerful takeaway because, as we look at the pitfalls, right? You look at the pitfalls of litigation. You look at the pitfalls of businesses not making sales. You look at the pitfalls of making wrong decisions and companies going under and companies filing bankruptcy. You start to look at these pitfalls and often miss the ultimate pitfall, which is start having success, being humble, depending on the ultimate source, and then getting off track as soon as it starts working.
Wow. So Solomon, in his early beginnings, he asks for wisdom. He gets the wisdom. God blesses him with so much. And eventually he starts to lead in the wrong path. It said here what distracted Solomon, which was pleasure, power, and how do you say it? Idolatry?
Mm-hmm. Which is idols. That's the other gods we was talking about.
So pleasure, he had 700 wives and 300 side pieces. He built a kingdom so big, but he started to think that it was his own doing, building it. And then idolatry, he compromised his values to please others, especially women who worship false gods. So it says here that Solomon knew better, that he even wrote about the warnings. He says, above all else, guard your heart. Do not chase after many women. The end of a matter is better than its beginning. I want to break down above all else, guard your heart. Is that only from Solomon?
There's other places in the Bible that it confirms that. But yes, Solomon wrote that in the Proverbs.
So a piece that I've been studying and learning is, as we read in self-development, it talks a lot about the subconscious brain, subconscious mind. The Bible talks about it as the heart, correct?
Yes. And I'll mention that Solomon said in Proverbs, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Meaning out of the heart are the issues that arise and are either solved or made exacerbated, made worse. And then another place, the Bible says in the New Testament, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So whatever's in the heart's going to come out. In other words, whatever your heart's overflowing with, you ever heard somebody constantly saying mean things through jokes? It's because that's what's in their heart. It's coming out. And so when you start to listen to what someone is saying, the underlying tone, it's coming from the heart.
It talks a lot about like renewing your mind, guarding your heart. And I like making that parallel to personal development because it is all in the Bible, right? Everything we read in personal development that has to do with this is all in the Bible. When we start to speak to ourselves in a kinder way, in a strong, higher self way, right? You are getting better and better. You are becoming more confident. It's okay, Leo, get back up, right? You start speaking these things consistently, it starts to change your heart. Mm-hmm. And of course, God changes your heart in ways that you can't even imagine. But I've realized that you can begin to train yourself, and that starts to change your heart, and you start to guard that. What guarding it means is you don't let other people say words to you and accepting it in, right? Other people are going to say things regardless, but I don't have to let that in and hurt me. I don't have to let that in and distract me because I understand who I am. I understand my values. I study myself so much, right? You study yourself so much that if someone were to insult you or say negative things, you run it through your own filters.
That's such a powerful description of that too. Because until we would talk about these things, I never heard it in that way of guarding your heart against the poison other people try to put on you in terms of your self-esteem. That's deep. That's powerful.
So I want to give this to you is how to pray like Solomon and how to ask for that wisdom. I saw Aiden on here saying, I never thought about praying for wisdom, but I'm going to start. I think that's beautiful. And I want to learn how to do it better because my prayers have been getting stronger. But prior, it's just, God, give me wisdom, allow me to know what is right and wrong, show me the way. And then when I'm making a decision, it's like, God, what do I do? Yeah. Right? I want to find out a way. I'm going to use ChatGPT, but I want to find a way to pray at the highest level as what he would want us to do. It says right here, it's a 4-step process. Step number 1 is to approach it with humility by saying something like, God, I don't know everything. I need you. I remember being taught that. Yeah. And being able to show up with humility. What is the importance of that? Is saying, God, I need you. I don't know everything. I can't do it without you. Those type of words.
I think it's a self-reminder as much as it is letting God know. Like God already knows that the breath we breathe is from him, right? The oxygen we have in our lungs is because he gifted it to us. So I think it's reminding ourselves of of that dependency on God. And something I started praying for many years ago every day is, God, give me wisdom. It's wisdom to make right decisions. Let me meet the right people. Bring the right people into my life. Let the wrong ones not be. And give me favor. The greatest negative thing that could ever happen would be to lose favor with God. And the second thing that is always helpful is to have favor with the people around you. People know, like, and trust you. You can help them. You can serve them. Imagine somebody comes to you and you're thirsty and they're trying to give you a glass of water. If you don't have a favor with that person and they don't trust you, they think that you have their bad intent at heart, they might not drink the water. They might die of thirst thinking you're poisoning them. But if you have favor with that person and they understand, hey, Leo's got my back, like Leo's really trying to help me here, now immediately you're going to take that glass of water and gulp it down, right? Because there is favor there. And so understanding that and asking God, and the importance of constantly reminding ourselves, like, the Bible says every good and perfect gift comes from above. And so it is reminding ourselves of, while yes, self-responsibility, that reliance on God, like the air we breathe, the fact that we have energy to get up and walk, the food we eat, it's all gifts from God.
You said something there of like, it's more of a self-reminder than a reminder to God, because we don't really have to remind,
right?
because he knows these things. But how I think of it now, as I've been growing my faith, that it's all a lot of it is a self-reminder,
Yeah.
right? Of the fear of God, of being obedient, and continually telling yourself that this comes from you, and you're speaking out. I know this comes from you. And the way that I see it is, it's you telling yourself, don't fall like Solomon did and start saying yes to the wrong things.
Right.
Right? Don't let the worldly ideas get to you and say yes to the wrong women, or look at money in a wrong or an evil way. Don't start doing that. Don't also think that everything you're building is yours, and that you're building it because, oh, all of a sudden you have this wisdom, you have this power, and now it's all you. Because what can be given to you can be taken away so fast.
Well, Solomon done well as long as he had a hold of money. But where it got backwards, at the risk of sounding churchy, is when he let money get a hold of him. And I think if we can emotionally detach, and Leo, we talk about this a lot, we can emotionally detach from money and really view it as a tool and energy that we are meant to plant, to sow, to use, to build others up, to build ourselves up, to build God up, to impact and empower others to step into their power. Now, money doesn't have a hold of us. We have a hold of it. It's a tool. So it's a good thing if you have a house full of tools, right? It's a good thing if you have access to many tools, to a lot of money. But what is a negative thing is the moment that you, like you said, we get perspective on thinking it's us, thinking it's all about us, thinking the world centers around us. And that is, again, where it comes back to that constant self-reminder, like, God meant for us to, yes, have incredible self-confidence, incredible self-esteem, realize that we are king's kids. You are made in God's image. You are meant for great things. And also to realize that everything we have is thanks to him.
Well, view on money has changed a lot as we have this mentality of building for the kingdom. Because as our business grows, we understand foundationally, we help people become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Right. In our consulting business, for example, we help people build systems, we help people build tools, and we know that at the end of the day, that person's going to get closer to God because they're going to feel more aligned.
Right.
Right. They don't have so much negativity rolling through their minds. That's how we train people. And at the end of the day, they will get closer to God. And we know that our business is ministry in disguise, as content, as community, etc.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm starting to realize that money is just simply an energy, a tool to be able to build that more. But when you know as a person, this has changed a lot. When you know as a person that the money you're creating is to further that mission, you're much more open to ask for the resources, and to ask for the wisdom to continue building that, because you know there's no ill intent for that money.
Yeah.
and you know it is being controlled in a good way, and you have worldly desires controlled, and it's almost like you can see the pathway forward where I know that there's going to be people try to slip you up, but I'm guarding my heart so strongly
Mm.
that they can't attack that path.
Yeah.
So we can protect ourselves and make sure that we're good and that we're doing the right things to make sure that that money that you're making continues to grow, but it's growing for a good purpose, and that you as the steward of that money, you're taking good precautions.
Yeah.
You're making that money grow and invest in different places, and you're continuing to learn almost as worship for God because you're using that to build his kingdom.
What goes from ownership, me, mine, I, what I want, to stewardship? What does God want, and how can I properly manage all these beautiful gifts that he's given me? Whether that be your talents, whether that be your gifts, whether that be communication you have, whether that be the following you have, the business you have, the finances, everything comes back to stewardship over ownership. That's a powerful perspective shift.
So back to praying like Solomon. Number one, approach with humility. So, God, I don't know everything. I need you. Everything I'm building is for you. Uh, it says here, true wisdom starts with fear, reverence of the Lord. Number two is ask for wisdom with responsibility. God, make me wise, not for ego, but so I can serve and lead well, so I can build your kingdom more. And in my prayers, what's been so different and what's been a very strong feeling is as I'm asking for these prayers, I look back to these live shows of us talking about it, and we ask for wisdom to build his kingdom.
Yeah.
We ask for resources to build his kingdom. Everything we do is to build his kingdom. And that's why we have so much more of a bold way of speaking and a bold way of showing our faith online
Yeah.
with our friends, with our clients. We're very bold with it, but also with our prayer, right?
So true.
Because we submit to you, we submit to God, and we ask for that guidance. We ask for that help because we're working for you.
Yeah. Well, and I think when it comes from ownership to stewardship, when it comes to the fact that every connection we have, every dollar we make is to further good and God. You know, the Bible talks about as people submitting ourselves to God, to God's plan, and talks about submitting ourselves to each other to help each other grow. And there is a perspective on that where I used to be nervous because I got into business and I was like, gosh, I want to do this. I want to do this right. I want to give back to good, to God, support those around me, take care. And then I've seen, as probably all of you guys have, the religious creeps or the people that try to hold you to certain standards and do certain things. And so I became very resistant to even talking openly, online or otherwise, about my faith. And so being able to do this in a format and a path that is just real and raw is a powerful thing. And so I'm having a lot of fun sharing this.
Me too. And it gives us the ability to learn it in real time.
Yeah.
And I like going back to these because we speak our thoughts out loud, and it's like maybe in 5 years we'll look back and see how youthful the understanding was.
Yeah.
Because the more you
So
go
true.
back to, you keep understanding it more.
Yeah.
And this has only been like 3 years of me slowly understanding, but going so much more in it. And when we do it publicly, it forces us to stay focused on what we're currently teaching.
Well, to be, the Bible said to be rooted and grounded, meaning, it said that if we are taking in God and connecting with God, that we'll be like a tree planted by water with deep roots that brings forth good fruit. And so I think realizing that what we're doing is we've planted the tree, we're watering the tree, we're letting it grow, we're letting the roots go deep. And as things come, it just strengthens that belief. We're bearing good fruit, we're sharing out good things, and we know that that attracts the right people and the wrong ones fall off. And I'm so grateful for you guys being here and getting to learn and grow together, because so many incredible things are being built, but it's all on a foundation, a culture of doing for good and for God. And I think that's the powerful thing. That's the thing that will last way past my little lifetime.
So it's step 1 and 2 of how to pray like Solomon. Number 3 is be specific. So give me wisdom to lead my team, to make this decision, to discern between option A, option B, to find what is right, to get to the next level, to get to the next place, to speak with clarity before we go on stage, right? Be
Mm.
very specific with what you're praying for. I think it's very twofold. I'm learning the spiritual sense of God, of course, how He shows that to us, how He blesses that onto us. Before, my mind was, hey, I was very specific for what I prayed for, and it's really step 4 that gave me the ability to feel it, because when you have such strong faith, you pray for the ability to speak, you pray for clarity, and you expect it. It's before my faith has grown, it was a placebo effect
Mm.
of like, I mean, I have faith,
Yeah.
it's going to come. And all of a sudden, I'm able to speak more. I'm like, okay, this is from God.
Yeah.
Now it's like, this is from God. We
Mm.
know that we have the capabilities when we pray for it. It's building His kingdom, and it comes to you. But even before, it's like, you know what you're here to work on,
Yeah.
and you have faith that God's going to give it to you in some capacity. So then you do better at that thing, and you feel like you have an army behind you of great people helping you make this decision.
Yeah. I think it's as we grow closer to God, as you and I both are, and we talk more to God, and you operate more. And this is a big one, guys: alignment. Something I didn't understand for so long, because it'd be frustrating. Like I'd ask God for something, and then it wouldn't happen. Right? I'm sure you've had all had prayers that wasn't answered, and you ask God, and you're like, golly, what am I doing wrong? Like I need to get this done. Like, come on now. And so,
What hurt my faith so long when I was younger was I prayed every day for my parents to get back together,
mm,
because they were basically fighting my whole entire life. I prayed every day. I don't know where I learned about God. I grew up in a very non-religious house, and I remember though I would pray to God that He would bring my family back together, and He never did. And
mm,
like I was so pissed. I was so angry, you know. And I
yeah,
remember feeling that too of like, I can't believe you. Like
yeah,
everyone says, do this, pray, and it doesn't work, you know.
yeah,
And years later, I've realized that I'm the man that I am because my parents divorced and got like separated.
yeah,
And I now have such a great relationship with each of them, and they're so happy in their own right now that
yeah.
that needed to happen. So
Mm,
sometimes God doesn't give the direct answer to the prayer, but He shows you 8 years later of like, hey, that's why I didn't do it.
yeah.
Right.
Well, and then there's our humanity, right? Every one of us have free will, and God didn't want to make a bunch of robots who He's like, snap your fingers and we just do. Like all of us make decisions that guide us to certain places, and so just really increasing that bond with God, the bond with, brothers, the people closest to you, and it strengthens your faith, and it gives you the confidence that every step you take, the next step's going to be revealed. You have the vision, and now you're going, all right, God, I'm doing this for you. This is your business. This is your thing. Like I'm just here to serve and help you build it. Like how can I help? And so now when we ask, it's no longer a selfish thing. Like, hey God, I need a new thing right now. It's like a alignment thing of, hey God, I'm building your kingdom, and you said you wouldn't leave us hanging. You said that ask and we will receive, and so I'm asking and I'm believing, expecting, knowing that I'm going to receive.
So that leads to number 4, step number 4, which is to expect to receive. Where's James?
James, near the back,
The
getting
back.
closer.
Okay, cool.
Getting closer.
So it says here, James 1:5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, and it will be given to you. It says so many times that it will be given to you, that when you ask for wisdom, Solomon asked for wisdom, it was given onto him. So when we understand that we can ask for it and it will be given to us in the right timing, then we can have, he almost calls us to expect it. Hey, expect this to happen, right? Expecting it is having that faith in God. Here, I'm gonna give this to you.
All right, cool.
And recently, it's been that. I talk a lot about the boldness of your faith, right? Awesome. I want to read this later. And I think about this where I had people who were very pushy with their faith in my life previously, right? And it would push me so far away. But I realized that there's certain people that are very bold with their faith that don't care
Yeah.
how you view it. I'm just going to share it because this is our life,
Yeah.
right? And I think that is what is going to help really our country, our people, our community is people who are bold. I'm not telling you to convert. I'm not telling you to put your money anywhere, but we're giving the advice of what works for us and giving almost very logical advice,
Yeah.
right? What is wisdom? Wisdom is being able to learn something, let's just say, and implementing it. And once you implement it, you used it. It's your story now. That becomes your wisdom. And of course, it's the idea that you might you might see a proverb, or you might have heard something in the past, and you use it when the moment comes up,
Yeah.
right? Being able to discern what is right and wrong. You choose not to date a specific person because you want to focus, right? Certain things like that.
Yeah.
And it's very logical to say you should have more wisdom, and you should pray for that wisdom,
Yeah.
because you should make better decisions in your life. And when before someone would explain that to me and say a Bible verse, I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
not happening. But if you just say it without the Bible verse, you're like, oh, this is
Makes
good.
sense.
This is good. It makes no sense, but it does make sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm calling people to be very bold in their faith. If you are bold in your faith,
Yeah.
like if you love God so much and you want to help people, like show it and teach people in that way.
Yeah.
And I just want that to happen more.
I think for me at least, what a turnoff can be is when someone's words are totally misaligned with who they're becoming, right? In other words, if they're out ripping people off and treating people badly, but they're preaching at me every day, it becomes a very backwards thing. And at the same time, when you just know that like God's really freaking awesome, and you know that like, hey, this is working for me, guys, let me share it with you, then that becomes a pure manifestation of the faith that we are receiving and the faith that we're living in at this moment.
So now, if any, James 1:5. Now, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith without doubting. And this is a new season of like having no doubt in the prayer.
And going on, it says to ask in faith. He said, you ask and don't receive because you ask amiss, that you may receive it on your own lust. In other words, so it makes you more popular, more famous, more better. And instead of asking for God's good and God's glory.
Wow. So how we kind of wrap that up is you align your life, right? Kind of looking at a framework in this way where God calls us to align our life with him, to keep our eyes fixed on him.
Yeah.
And he's always talking to us. He's always guiding us. And there's certain points where we choose to go the route that he wants us to go, or we let our own worldly desires take us to certain places. And when you start aligning with God, he's probably going to show you the business you need to run, or the people you need to be around, or what you need to be doing. And you start to listen to that, and it feels good. You feel it in your heart, right? I feel like that's the only time you say, listen to your heart fully and do that. But then you start to realize that that thing is probably helping others. That thing is probably going to impact others. That decision that you make is always going to lift other people up, because that's what God wants us to do. When we understand that all of our actions is to serve other people, maybe you're in a service business, or maybe you're a coach, or maybe you're someone who is a teacher, that is servitude. You're serving people, you're serving God. And when you know that that is your pathway, that it's your purpose, that is your highest calling every day, now you can, of course, before and now, ask God for the wisdom to continue that. Ask God for the resources to grow that. Ask God for things and expect that it's going to come, because it is serving his kingdom. And when I think about God, right, and he sees you, let's just say Leo in the past. Now, Leo's building his kingdom. Why would God come and say, oh, Leo's building his kingdom, right? And his worldly desires and his lust and his ideas, let me raise him up. Mm-hmm. He's praying for wisdom. Let me raise this guy up because he's building his kingdom.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he would ever do that. But if Leo, when God knows all intentions, right, he understands that if he's truly intentionally wanting to build God's kingdom, to help other people, to lift them up, and Leo is asking for wisdom, he would absolutely lift him up because it's only going to lift other people up as well.
Yeah.
That's what changed my entire perspective of faith, honestly, in the past couple of months. Just seeing that. My faith has been faith, it's been good, but it's never been this strong once I understood that foundation.
I think that's a powerful example, and I think all of us have we all have faith, right? So some of us is exercise it in other ways.
Faith in the wrong things, right?
Yeah, I have faith. I once heard an illustration. I didn't come over here and check my chair before I sit down in it because I have faith it's going to hold me. Like it's sitting there. It's a chair. It's meant to be sat on. And understanding that we all have faith, the Bible even said to every man is given a measure of faith. But it's just a matter of, are we going to use it? Are we going to plant it? Are we going to grow it? You're given a muscle. You have muscles. But are you going to grow it by putting it under pressure to be used? Or are you going to let it sit there and wither? And so as we have faith, we have the choice every single day to say, okay, am I going to exercise this faith? Am I going to let this faith get bigger and stronger? If I can trust God for $1, can I trust him for 100? If I can trust God to help me make a right decision with this situation, surely I can help him. He can help me make a right decision with another situation.
This has been a good topic.
This is fun.
Appreciate your wisdom.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And I like this format. It gives us the ability to double down on a Bible study that we already want to do and have a discussion of what we want to do, and later on script some content that we want to do, and also that you guys get to tune in.
If you're not following Leo on Instagram, make sure you go follow. It's Leo Valentino.
Thank you. So what we're going to continue to do is try different formats here of things that you guys want us to do, but also we love to do, like this Bible study here. Trust that we will continue doing what we know is right and to help other people. So we're going to be back here tomorrow, same time, same place, April 3rd. Wow.
April 3rd.
It's already April.
We are pushing day 70 early next week.
So I'll walk us out with a prayer, and then we're going to rock and roll throughout the rest of the day. God, thank you so much for this platform, for allowing us to speak your word, to learn your word. Thank you for your endless blessings and promises, and continually guiding us every step of the way. God, we ask for wisdom for everyone here, wisdom for us, that we can know what is good and wrong, and you can continue to guide our paths, continue to guide our minds and our hearts in the right direction. God, thank you so much for leading us and allowing us to lead your people. Allow us all to be shepherds of your word, shepherds of people who may be lost and who just need to get closer to you, God. Thank you so much for wisdom. Thank you so much for your path. Everything we're building is for you in your name. And we love you, and we see you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great, fantastic day.
See you guys tomorrow.
Bye-bye.